One of the highlights of this year's Melbourne Documentary Film Festival is a film called The Human Race, and it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the director of Human Race, Simon Lec. Simon, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you.
Now, this is such a fascinating scientific story about the genetic blueprint of the human race and of discovering insights into that situation. How did the documentary come about for you in the first place?
Well, back in 2019, I spent a lot of time thinking about nature and nurture because my son was about he had to start school. We had no problems with his sister starting school, but he was just extremely anxious, and we had to stay with him. And yeah, so I had to spend a lot of time with him because he just couldn't go to school.
Hmm.
And I was thinking a lot about, whose fault is this? Is this a question of how we've raised him, or is it in his nature, and so and so. So yeah, so I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and at the same time, I saw this interview with Eske Willerslev at the People's Festival in Bornholm, which is like a democracy festival. And he was talking about this project, or this. He had this dream of mapping 5,000 genomes in order to find out if illnesses like mental illness is an intrinsic part of being human. And so I just thought we have to make a film about this project. And so the producer Jacob Levin Krog, he called Eske, and 2 days later we were sitting in his office talking about this idea. And I think it took Eske 15 minutes to say let's do this. And within 30 minutes, he invited us to a workshop in Cambridge. So yeah, it took us from the idea and to sitting in Cambridge took us about a week.
Uh-huh. What an interesting backstory. It's fascinating. So tell me about then your process in what you filmed, the archival and other footage, what permissions Eske gave you in terms of what he would allow to have filmed, all of that.
Yeah, so in the beginning, the initial idea was to make a classic science movie, a science film. So we talked with all the scientists, the researchers, and that was how we worked for a lot of time. So so it was, I think it took us about a year to make this transition of having this film walking on these two paths, the scientific and the personal. So the personal story, uh, we began filming this when I figured out that looking at walking at these two tracks would make a bigger story, and that Eske's story would embody the scientific story. So in the beginning, it was a lot about getting access to the stuff, and later it was a question about getting access to the family.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. How very, very interesting. Did you have much production support behind you? I mean, it's a Danish produced documentary, I think. And did you have much support and so on to be able to make this feature-length film?
Yeah, we had support from the Danish Film Institute,
Yeah.
and we had support from the Lundbeck Foundation, uh, who are they are this is the foundation who also uh, commissioned this project, the scientific project.
Hmm. Oh, that's great. I mean, it's not always easy to get funding or financing to get a documentary going, so well done on that. Well, this is such an interesting story about the decoding the DNA of 5,000 ancient humans. What an incredible situation that is. And the process, and you are filming all of this, of course, is just amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, 13 years ago, 14 years ago was what was like the first time de decoding a human genome. It cost about $1 billion, and so now the technology enables sensors, research centers such as geogenetics, which is Eske Willerslev's center, enables them to do it much faster. So and code like mapping 5,000 ancient genomes, it's just like an monumental mission. It's an incredible feat. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And documenting it all. It's and of course there are ethical and political and other issues that sort of swirl around this whole situation, and that was an interesting thing for you and I suppose for SK to maneuver.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of ethical issues. First of all, who who does these bones and teeth belong to? Do they belong to humanity, or do they belong to the groups, the communities from which they came from? That's like the big one. Uh, but also, that there are just so many questions, and I think the biggest problem is the results of the science. I mean, there are a lot of questions you can ask, but it's not always, you want the answers. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I was watching this, I thought, have you or has Elke Eske uncoded mental illness and its origins, autism, a whole range of bipolar, all that sort of thing? And if so, what does that mean in terms of changing the genomic or genetic print for people in the future?
So what they find out is that without like spoiling the film,
Yeah.
is that indeed mental illness or dispositions for mental illness is a part of the human genome, and it has always been a part of the human genome. So when I was sitting back in 2019 contemplating on nature and nurture, I can just say that of course you can trigger mental illness, but the disposition for mental illness has always been a part of our genome.
Mm.
And for me, this is like just mind blowing because it changes our perspective of humanity. Like this is like mental illness. What we call mental illness is a part of being human. You cannot
Mm.
uh, edit it out of the human genome. If you try to get it out of the human genome, uh, you'll lose intelligence, or you'll lose humor. You lose all the stuff that is so essential of being human. So for me, this is something that changes our view, our understanding of what it means to be human.
Yes.
Um, uh, and yeah.
Wow, it's so incredible, but certainly the technology, the research, the things that this scientific investigation has thrown up is just incredible, and of course there'll be so much more research going on. Um, And I noticed too that in the film there's some rivalry about others who are trying to beat Esker or whatever, and trying to reach other conclusions as well with the same research that they're doing, which I found quite incredible because science is based on, to some extent, that rivalry.
It is, and I mean, for me, the interesting thing is uh, when we talk about Eske's rivalry with Svante Pabo and David Reich, it also tells about the who Eske Willerslev is, and that's also what the film is focusing on. Who is Eske Willerslev, and is it nature or is it nurture? He's
Mm,
extremely driven. He's extremely driven. So the in the film we try to explore where does this drive come from? Why is Eske the way he is? So the film is also like a portrait of him,
mm,
and what I wanted was not, just to focus on his genetics, but also on his backstory, on his why he is the way he is, not only from a biological perspective. And I mean, there are many, again, I don't want to spoil,
yeah.
but there are many clues, there are many ways of understanding him, and he is very extreme, and this is maybe this is like the big conclusion is, of course, that it's also always a combination of nature and nurture, and I really believe that Eske is the way he is because he was born this way. He reminds a lot of his brother is the same. Uh, uh, but there have also been like things in his life that has made him to what he is today.
Yeah, absolutely, and yeah, that's well explained. So, with so much in the film, I mean, it's I think a 90-minute documentary or thereabouts. How did you make decisions about the edit in terms of what you filmed, what would stay, what would be taken out of the final version, that sort of thing?
So it took us 5 years to make the film, 2 years to edit the film,
Oh,
and I think that we have at least three finished films, different from each other. Uh, uh, and this it was really hard. We overproduced, I think is the term you use. We had a lot of footage, and in the end, I mean, for me, it was interesting to make a film that wasn't a classic science film with talking heads talking about science. I wanted to make a film that a broad audience could watch and understand. And I think that making a character-driven film on the shoulders of Eske was a clever way to do it because he really embodies this scientific project. I didn't want to make a film that was educating, educational. It's not. I'm not trying to teach about genomics, but what's interesting for me is the perspectives of this science, and of course the way this project could potentially change the way we think about humanity.
absolutely agree, and I agree with you about keeping the audience in mind so that they uh, understand, but not be didactic in terms of teaching scientific principles. That's for another sort of film, I suppose. But no, I like the way you did that. Tell me, how did Eske respond to the final version of the film?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. So Eske, he's famous in Denmark, and he has written, I think, three or four biographies. He's been in many films, and this was actually a reason why it was really hard to make this film, because he's used to telling his own story. Uh, and we went along in the beginning with Eske telling his own story, which was like a combination of all the biographies he had already written. So at a point, I had to make a decision saying, okay, we need to tell this story. We need to look at Eske. This is not a film about Eske looking at himself. So we had to like remove him from the, not letting him tell the story. That was I could feel that Eske was a little bit nervous about this because he was used to telling the story himself. But on the other hand, I could also feel that it was a relief for him, like, and that it would be interesting for him to see how the world looks at him and not him telling about himself. Uh, but at the end, he's very fond of the film, uh, but I also know that it was tough for him to see the film.
Mhm. Okay.
Really tough. Yeah. And he's very honest about it, and there are parts for me. It's been obvious from the start, when you are as driven as he is, it it's of course not easy for his family, and this was something that he could see in the film in a new way, and I know that was tough for him. Yeah.
Sure. No, I understand. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Interesting to hear all of that. Now, apart from screening at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival, Human Race has screened elsewhere at other festivals, other places, and what responses
Yeah,
have? Yeah.
yeah, it opened the science scene in Copenhagen, CPH Docs,
Uh-huh.
uh, which went really well, and it's been at AFO, and it's been around, and we get a lot of very, very nice feedback, and especially from the neurodiverse community. We get a lot of very positive feedback, which is, of course, very, very important for us. I'm very passionate about this angle, this perspective. Yeah.
That's great to hear. Excellent stuff. Simon, I'm just intrigued. I just wanted to ask something about yourself. What other films have you made, and are there any influences on or filmmakers on your own approach to filmmaking?
Well, I made a film called Being Human a couple of years ago, which was sort of like a academic film that was very important for human race. It was a discussion about what it means to be human,
Mm,
and it was also a discussion about nature, nurture, and but 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 the main thing about this film was about the fight we're fighting, to how can you phrase this? We are all fighting about the right to define what a human being is,
mhm.
and this fight is everywhere. Uh, and and so human race was also like I wanted to so Eske is also fighting about the right to define what a human being is. He believes that 90% of being human is biology. His brother is an anthropologist, and he believes it's the other way around. So
Mm,
so being human was very much about this fight about the right to define what a human being is.
mm.
Uh, yeah,
Okay, very interesting to hear that. Are you working on other films or projects at the moment?
yeah. So we're working on a project about being Jewish in Denmark,
Oh,
which is pretty tough at the moment. And we're also working on a project about researcher in also about also a film about the human brain. Yeah.
very interesting. Look forward to both of those. And I was just wondering about when you were talking about being human and the human race, whether you also contemplating looking at artificial intelligence and what that tells us about being human.
Yeah, that's that's also something I would like to make a film about, especially the way it changes. We use AI a lot, and I can already feel how it changes my way of working, but also the way I think and the way I work with other people and how I talk to them. It's yeah,
Okay,
that's really interesting. Yeah.
it is very, very
So
interesting.
so not
Yes.
not about AI, but how it changes uh, our way of understanding each other and how we think about each other. I'm
Yep.
really curious about the workspace. I mean, how we work with each other when uh, when I discuss things with AI. It's so fast. It, it's yeah.
Excellent stuff. Fascinating. It's there's such a huge area to cover in all of these topics. So brilliant. Simon, it's been great talking to you. We've been speaking to Simon Lec, who's the director of Human Race, which is screening now as part of the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. Thank you so much for talking with me, Simon.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.